Hello, everyone, and welcome to this latest live episode of Vox Vomitus. If you're watching us live on video, this is our Halloween episode. So Allison and I are being witchy today. Welcome to our coven / the Halloween episode of Vox Vomitus. I am your host, Jennifer Ann Gordon, the author of Pretty Ugly, The Japanese Box and Other Stories, a whole bunch of creative nonfiction essays, and coming eventually in the future, Perfect Wives, Perfect Lies. Still no date, but I am meeting with some of the powers that be tomorrow. So maybe I'll get a rough estimate of a date. Then I know everybody's just anxiously waiting for 2027 for
we have a whole other year to get there, Jennifer. Like one more year before
one more whole year before we get there. Joining me today, as always, is my co-hostess with the mostest, my witchy co-host, Allison Martine, author of The Bourbon Books. With us today, in all of his curls, is Maxwell Gold. He's here to talk about his book, Songs of Enough, an Inferno of my own. Inferno all my own. I knew I was going to get it wrong. But Max is also just like the president of all horror. So he's going to probably talk to us a little bit. President of the genre of horror.
I'm the executive director of the Horror Writers Association.
King of horror.
King of horror. So what I'm hearing is king of horror. Max, welcome to your very first episode of Vox Vomitus. Max was supposed to be here a while ago, back in September, I think, but life kept getting in the way. So we are so happy to have Max during Halloween week. Everything happens for a reason. Max, tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about you, and then a little bit about Songs of Enough.
Sure. I'm happy to be here finally. And a little bit about me. I'm a poet, short story writer. I've published a little over last count, a little over 350 poems since 2017 and 6 poetry collections. My last poetry collection, Bleeding Rainbows, was nominated for the Bram Stoker Award in 2024. 2023 to 20, for 2024. My work's been nominated for, the Eric Hoffer Prize, the Rhysling Award, Pushcarts, So, I've been writing for, it's weird to say, I've been writing for almost 10 years now. You're getting close to 10 years now. And this is my latest poetry release, Songs of Enough, an Inferno on my own. So it's kind of my homage to Dante, which was one of my early influences that got me into poetry when I was very young. So it's kind of my cosmic horror take on Dante's Inferno.
Well, I love it. So you said you've been writing for 10 years, but I have to ask, do you have like journals somewhere filled from like high school days and junior high of bad poetry before you became a award nominated poet?
Well, I mean, I've been writing
one in his hand.
I've been writing most of my life. And I would have like in middle school, elementary school, I would take like notebook paper and write stories. I mean, I have a lot of that actually somewhere here. And 2017 is like the date that I like professionally started publishing. That's kind of my like. But this, I actually got this at COSI. I don't know if you remember. Jennifer, you mentioned. So I got this when the new COSI opened up. So Allison, COSI is Center for
Science and
is this an Ohio thing?
Yeah, it's like
it's explain for those of us who are not Ohioans.
The Central Ohio Institute, Central Ohio Science Institute, or something like that.
It's like a big science, fun, interactive science museum. This is the museum I almost got kicked out of for touching parts of the Titanic exhibit.
Yeah, that sounds like you.
Yeah,
I was a grown-up.
Behind your back. That's what we tell the kids in elementary school is hands behind your back.
To be fair, I was in my 30s.
Yeah, it's a really
that does sound like you. That sounds like you could have done it last week. You're like, I almost got kicked out of this place I wasn't even supposed to be in the first place. That's you now, breaking into places.
It's a really cool museum. Like they have all sorts of interactive exhibits and stuff. Anyway, so I remember I got this is where I got this little notebook, and it all has like little like gel pen stories that I wrote all throughout.
The gel pens. Are they colors?
Oh yeah, there's blue, there's silver, there's gold, there's purple, because each story had to have a different color.
Of course.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I wrote this in elementary school, not middle school. I wrote this in elementary school. Like I wrote like my own sequel to GoldenEye. I wrote my own sequel to Armageddon. How the asteroid actually missed, then came back and then destroyed the Earth. Like,
wait, how can it? I'm not great at physics, but how can the asteroid miss and come back? Is it like boomerang?
I don't know. I was in 4th grade, so I didn't really understand physics either.
Yeah. I don't now. And I'm just thinking like in Star Trek 4, the Enterprise goes around the Earth and then it time travels. So maybe the asteroid also time travels.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can explain
science.
Everything by saying a black hole.
Right.
Or just use the word quantum. That's all Marvel has done for a long time. It's quantum. And then that explains all of it.
The speed of the asteroid created a rift in the time-space continuum and opened up another dimension. I think we could still sell this, Max.
Yeah. I think
it's going to stay on the shelf. I think
I'm going to call one of the Bay brothers, Michael Bay, one of those. I was going to say, for those who can't see Maxwell, he's got bright pink glasses. So I had to assume that the stories were also written in vibrant colors, because, I mean, if for a person who's going to choose bright pink glasses, stories cannot be in just like black ink. That is just for basic. No, we're not doing basic bitch today. I'm a basic witch today. Like a
basic
little melted hershey kiss.
I know. Yes. For people who are watching this, I am not wearing a dunce cap. I know that's what it looks like.
You could be, though.
It's a very tall, pointy hat, but I have to like lean way back here for you to see.
For it to be seen. Yeah. Whereas I'm reminded of one of my favorite like running viral Instagram reels is a little girl who gets asked, what are you for Halloween? She's like, I'm a bitch. And they're like, oh, are you a good witch or a bad witch? She's like, I'm a bad bitch. So that's what I am today too.
Nice. So Max, you said Dante's Inferno was one of your first inspirations with poetry. Like, how old were you when you read Dante's Inferno? Because like my first inspirations for writing anything, it was not that smart.
Mine was Shel Silverstein, not Dante.
For writing, mine was Nightmare on Elm Street.
I mean, my parents
but like as far as first poetry.
Yeah, my parents read that to us like when we were younger. I mean, like when I started wanting to do, because I picked up anything and everything. I was probably like 12 or 13 when I started reading that, like Bullfinch's Mythology. And I was still reading like Poe as well. I mean, a lot of the Hesiod's Theogony was something that I started reading, because for me when I was that age, mythology was just it was easier, like the imagery, like the story.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's a lot more twisted, and you're reading it back as an adult, because Hera was, for example, not a nice, I mean, none of them were very nice to each other, but anyway, that's a topic of conversation. But because I didn't really read a lot of horror when I was younger. It was really more the classics, like Edith Hamilton's collection of mythology, Robert Graves' collection of Robert Graves' Greek myths is actually one of the ones that I read like many times over, and I actually still have that somewhere here. So that's kind of where that's kind of where my interest for poetry and myth and kind of that epic storytelling kind of started when I was.
So Max, when you were in 5th or 6th grade, because I think for me it was 6th grade, we had to each be one of the Greek gods or goddesses and give a presentation. Were you also one of them, and did you wear a pillowcase like the rest of us? Because that was the extent of our costume.
So that was around like the time, like when I was in elementary school, like that was the time Hercules came out, and everyone was like, and everyone loved Hercules, everyone loved Zeus. Me, I was like, no, Hades is the cool character. I always
like Hades. Yeah, I just remember I was. I was nemesine the goddess of memory, which was just so mean because then I was the mother of all of the muses. So I had to remember all of the muses, which is like, well, I'm the goddess of memory, so I should remember all of them. Those are not easy for like a 5th grader to remember all of the muses. Like, there's the Calliope one, and that's all I got.
I'm
Terpsichore,
so jealous.
maybe.
I went to a
You didn't get to
Catholic.
do that?
I was in a Catholic
Oh,
school
you went to
in
Catholic
5th
school.
grade.
You probably couldn't wear one of these either.
Yeah. So I wasn't allowed
No
to do
bad.
any of those things. I didn't really start reading mythology until I went to a
Mhm.
public high school.
Mhm.
And I took Latin, and we all had to like have a name of like one of the gods, blah blah blah. But I did only take Latin for 1 year, so
The Latin's not so much. Most of my Latin
Yeah.
is like lawyer stuff and not necessarily useful for anything related to actual literature or anything, because like pro hoc vice, that's not a literary term. Nobody wants to know that.
I switched to German because my theater advisor in high school was the German teacher.
Oh, I was gonna
So
say, what did they want you? Like, is this like an
I
Uta
took
Hagen
German
thing
in high
where they're
school
like
because
learning it in the
everyone
German?
else. Well, I started German in middle school, but mostly because everyone else was taking Spanish, and I was like, I don't want to take Spanish, and I actually enjoyed it because because of Yiddish, for example. Like, there's a lot of
Yes.
root words that
There's
are
crossover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Was Yiddish offered? Because I would rather take Yiddish than German personally.
same.
I mean, you got to learn a little bit of Hebrew, a little bit of Polish, a little bit of
Mhm.
a little bit of everything. But yeah,
I
if you
took
can, if you
German
ask
because
me
my
to-
mom is French, and I just did not want to. I was like, I just wanted to rebel so
finger on
hard
palm.
that I was like,
I
I
actually
want you not to
didn't
help me with my
offer
homework.
where I was. Your choices were French and Spanish, and having grown up here in Southern California, French is really not super useful. Like, maybe if I was Canadian, sure, but Spanish, very, very useful. So for the people who were taking French, we're looking at them going, how do you think this is going to be practical ever? Whereas the Spanish, very much so practical. And at one point I was technically fluent, not so much anymore. It all fell out of this here.
Fell out of the hat. So was it your early childhood connection to Hades that made you think maybe you liked horror and poetry? Like, when did the horror when did you start to realize like both of those had their claws in you?
Well, to be completely honest,
He's like, I hate horror.
and hopefully
like,
he
has to take off his HWA hat.
Yeah.
Right. I really didn't read a lot of horror, to be completely honest. Until I didn't really get into horror. I mean, I read some of H.P. Lovecraft when I was in like high school. And it was, it was like, all right, like, I don't love H.P. Lovecraft. And that was probably the extent then. And then, into college, and after college, I started working on an H.P. Lovecraft musical, actually.
Well, that I'm into.
And
does that exist? Is that a thing now? Because can I audition? I don't sing very well, but I'll try.
I have about 30 songs written for it.
That's a lot for one musical.
Well, I didn't plan to use them all. And I went through up to the point of like trying to get a workshop started. I was traveling to New York. I was trying to do the whole thing, and then I started networking with people in the weird fiction community, in the literary community, and then that's when I met St. Joshi, and who's like the foremost Lovecraft scholar. And he actually edited this. This came out from Hippocampus Press. And then I sent him a poem for Spectral Realms, and then it kind of started from there. Because I kind of came into it through the weird fiction, like the cosmic horror space. And then I just kind of stumbled into horror that way. I do love horror now.
Because I would say
because it's mandatory. Because it's part of my job to say that.
Because I'm required to, or they take away my hat. No, I was going to say Songs of Enough definitely has that cosmic horror feel to it, where you're reading these phrases. Where there was one that I circled, and then I couldn't figure out how to make it circled so I could actually still read what was underneath it. But it was talking about like between the mascara and the macabre and these visual imagery. There's nothing other than cosmic horror to describe a lot of it, and the whole cyclical nature of it with the different cycles. Did this come to you? I mean, for me, it feels like it came to you either you lived it, fever dream, or possibly you've been kidnapped by these like eldritch gods and made you live this. You can pick any of the above.
All the above? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
So
yeah.
Also, like when I started like getting into cosmic horror, it was around 2016, and
I wonder what happened in the world in 2016.
Right, I don't know.
It's weird.
And that was kind of the basis for the cyber gods have center stage in Songs of Enough, and they have center stage in a lot of my work. And that was kind of the birth of the cyber gods was 2016 for obvious reasons, and that like the cyber gods have kind of evolved over time as they began as this sort of like literary experiment, this idea that like what is worse than an actual monster, than a monster that we created that has now become something cosmic in and of itself. So I wasn't thinking of artificial intelligence when I thought about this then, but I mean I was thinking of like climate change. I was thinking of everything. I was just thinking about like the idea that humans are worse than monsters in a lot of ways. So I guess to answer your question, like yes, there may be certain aspects of that I took from my own personal experience, but a lot of it was kind of just the whole. I studied philosophy in my undergrad, so I mean there was a lot of just this idea that humans are the worst monster imaginable. That kind of I tried to pour into it.
Yes, I mean it definitely comes across. I have like my little like page of notes here, so if you see me squinting and looking down, it's because I'm not wearing my glasses, and I'm trying to decipher like my messy handwriting because I was like,
oh, I can't read my own handwriting.
I read this on my e-reader, and I should have put it on the e-reader that I can actually write notes on, but it wasn't. It was on a different one. So I was like writing notes on this like random piece of paper. Okay, so we've covered the cyber gods, the decay of humanity. I literally wrote at one point in time, how much of this is autobiography? I feel like, so I dabble in poetry. I don't consider myself a poet by any means. And I feel like I could never be a real poet because like all of the poetry I write is like I'm such a Leo. Like it is just all autobiography. It is all about me. That I'm so impressed when I read poetry that like is about something other than
what's going on in here.
Yeah. But at the same time, I was still following this journey, this very personal journey through this much larger experience. So like, I guess like how much of, did you find, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Do you ever find with poetry that it's so personal that you have to other it to make it less scary to put out there?
So, you mean like it's like so personal, like you have to like cover it up?
Yeah. Like, so, add a quote unquote monster, add something that, I guess that's what I'm saying, that you have to.
Yeah, that people won't look to see how much of this is true because they're going to see something that obviously isn't true. So they won't look to the deeper truth beneath it because you put a monster on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So like the sections of the about absent storms. So I have epilepsy, there's when I was little and when I had a seizure, and it says petit mal in there.
I remember that section, and I'm like, okay, these have to be referring to seizures, but I didn't know that you actually experienced them, so I thought they were more of a symbolic thing. But here, this was literal. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, and if you know someone or if you've experienced them before, it's it's like an absence storm. Like you don't know what's happening until it happens, and then you're like I would sleep for like 10 hours. Like it's very terrifying when they happen. So it's one of those things where it's like sometimes I'll put things like that in there without a either an obvious reference, or I'll put it in there and you're not going to know unless I obviously just like tell, like
right.
And you just did. So
and you just did.
So now we know.
Right. So I don't know if that answers the question or not.
No, it does. I really just like commend poets so much, and especially like in a work like this, which is just like you take it as a whole. Like, what was your thought process going into writing that first poem? Like, do you outline where this, like, especially like this collection, like the journey it was going, or were you just thinking in the back of your head, Dante's Inferno, like if he can do it, I can do it?
Well, so this was not at all meant to be like the Inferno was basically Dante like bitching about his friends, for lack of a better description. This was really more of a like a literary treatise kind of, in a way. It was a like a metaphysical exploration and like a descent into a sort of a literary hell, a kind of a makeshift metaphysical hell. And I'm actually trying to do another one, kind of like a purgatory version, like like you're going through this and then you're going to go either up or down somewhere else. When I wrote this, I envisioned it as just one long, like meant to be read as just one continuous cycle. So like there are 15.
Oh, without the cycles in them. Got it. Okay.
Okay.
And that is how I read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I went back and read certain parts again, but I wasn't sure if that was part of like the structure when you envisioned it, that it should have these cycles and there should be rest between them. Because I know some of them, like I read back to back, and then I'm like, no, I need to wait because I need to digest this one before I go to the next one.
Yeah, I it was meant to be read in order, like from beginning to end, as opposed to like other collections I've done where it's like, oh, you can read this poem, you can read that poem, like. This was I wrote this in mind to actually like you need to start the descent from like the top, and like just to go all the way through. Like you could read any part of it, but I think you would get the full effect starting from beginning to end.
Yeah, like the emotional like journey is obviously in its entirety. It's not just like, oh, this part is like, I don't want to say the prettiest because that's like not the correct terminology, but like, oh, I love like how like the words in this one the most. So like, no, like it all means something if you read it as like, as an entirety. So you knew kind of like the journey you were going to take with this. Do you ever did you have to like outline it at all? Did you think like these are like the beats that I definitely need to hit? Or do you just like go into it and just like bare your soul and then like come out on the other end and you're like, this is what we've got?
For this one, there were like it didn't all just spill out all at once, but like there were certain like I would write out a portion of it and then I would sit on it and then I would be like, okay, this is how the rhythm needs to sound, or this is how the structure of it like should look, feel, because like there are certain parts of it that have more prose, and then there are parts of it that are free verse, and there are parts that kind of look more like concrete. So I wanted it to be a non-traditional poetry book. I wanted
it does have those Yeah, I was gonna say it does have those different parts where some of them it's like shorter, choppier sections, and then ones where the longer verses, and then somewhere I really loved having it in front of me. And I was telling Jennifer, I'm like, I wish I had like the physical page in front of me, because sometimes just even watching the words move down the page as they get shifted over, I'm just thinking formatting this must have been difficult, because you have to be really precise so it looks exactly the way it should be. But then you have them, and I had to look up the word for the proems that you have in through there. Is that a word that you made up, or did you borrow that from something else?
No, that's
Like
this actually a proem is like a proem is like a little prologue. It's like a little beginning, kind of setting the stage.
Because I liked those as they like markers for the journey.
Yeah. Allison, I liked what you said that like just about formatting these books.
You're still thinking about that crossword puzzle, aren't you?
Oh God, I was making no, I just feel like people who like format books, poetry books, or like non-traditional story, any formatting, literally that should be an award. But like, yeah, when I like in certain literary journals, I'll see like how poems are formatted and like the entire poem is like in the shape of something. I'm like, these poor people. I have a hard enough time getting my indent to be the same.
Yeah. Like
my heart goes out to the editor for this, because they had to deal with all of this crazy formatting.
Well, I think that it just adds something, that visual reminder, because each part is different, so that, you said you could read the whole thing through from the beginning to the end, but each one then has its own feel, because some of them do have the longer ones and some of them have like very short stanzas with more just graphic ideas versus more explanatory language. And then, like you said, the proems going through that give you kind of like a bookmark of where you are in the journey, and then until you get to the finale, because it does have like this kind of spiraling descent feel, and you can even see that on the page. So I liked how those two things work together, and like the fact that your brain came up with these things to see, okay, the visual part and then the words and how that's going to work together. Because I know for me, I don't have that visual aspect. Like Jennifer, she's the one with the graphic background, yet I make most of the graphics, and then I'm like, does this look okay? That's me, because I'm like, I don't know, I can't do any of that.
But you can though. So Max, when you write, what is it your process like when you write poetry versus when you write short stories? Like, is that like a different hat you put on? See what we did there? I'm like, mine's
sorry,
like
I'm having way
to
too much
head.
amusement with my hat, and it's very strange.
So yes, yeah, it's very much a different part of your brain when you're, for me at least, when I'm writing a poem versus a short story. For me, I have to like, I can write a short story, like I can just like scribble it out, but then sometimes when I'm writing a short story, I have to be like, I have to outline a little bit. I have to be like, oh, okay, so the character will do this and this and this and this, and then I can just type it. I can sit at the computer and I can type the short story. For poetry, a lot of the times I have to start handwriting it first.
Because I was going to ask if this was free-handed. Yeah.
Because it's different. It's like I can sit down and write like 15 poems. Now they're going to change like when I'm actually like transitioning them to the computer. But it's just it's different, because when I feel like, so when I'm trying to put together a poem, you're trying to create this being an exception, this book being an exception. You're trying to create different moments. You're trying to create something that is that doesn't necessarily have a narrative all the time. Something that's just a very specific feeling. Whereas when I'm trying to create a short story, that's there is more. It is more formulaic. So it is two different sides of your brain. You kind of have to joggle a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think I have that poetry side of my brain, which is probably why I don't touch those very often, because my poems are like, yeah, we're just going to put you back by the stories and the novels, and you can read poetry and appreciate it, but let's leave that to the professionals.
I feel like my writing is often described as like poetic, and it's very literary, and it's like really thick with like metaphor and everything. And I kept hearing that, and I'm like, maybe I should write poetry. And I'm like, I'm not good at that. Like I didn't.
It's funny because you can have prose that feels almost lyrical, yet it doesn't necessarily translate to writing poems because they're different media and what they're trying to do and how they're trying to convey it. It's like I'm using this within that. But then you have entire sections, Jennifer, in some of your books that you could take out and say this is a poem and no one would argue with it if they didn't see it in context of the larger.
I feel like
I've read some of your books like that.
Yeah, I feel like I can do that, but I don't think I could. I would never be able to do it, Max. Like I could not do what you did with this book. Like my brain just like does not comprehend even like how you. That's why I'm like, how did you do this? Like,
I'm still working on the choreography for the H.P. Lovecraft musical over here. I'm gonna Cthulhu.
I know, like what's
well, you can also do you can do prose poetry. I mean, I write a lot of prose. I write a lot of prose poetry, and that's that's also a balance of that's a balance of having the rhythm in your prose. And you can still have narrative, but it's walking the line between writing a flash piece and making a poem.
And I think I do a lot of like flash / kind of a little bit prose poetry with like, but not horror. Like I've never been able to do like prose poetry or even flash horror. Like it's two different parts of my brain that I've tried, and I just I love it when people can do it.
You're like, I can't do it.
I can't do it.
When I write prose poetry, like when I try, like I don't really have a word count in mind, but when I do write prose poetry, and this I also handwrite it as well. Like I try to picture a moment, any moment. So there's an anthology coming out that I have a poem in, but when I was for that specific theme, I was trying to capture. I was like I was thinking about the first step this monster would take, and that's all that I thought about. And then I was like, how can I make this terrifying and scary and whatever in just a page. And I mean, I think it's at least for me, like that's how I try to do prose poetry is because if you're doing a flash story, if you're doing a flash, then it's like, then you need to have more than just the first step. It's like, well, what's the monster do? What's it, with prose poetry, you can cut it down to be like, well, what moment do I want to focus on?
Yeah, that laser focus on just that one moment and really exploring it, which often will get left behind in a larger piece because like the mind moves on to the next thing. And even if it had an impact, it's lost by the third paragraph because you want to see what happens next. So having that focus lets you kind of dwell and marinate in that. And I love that. I love that we can go back and forth and do that. And I'm one of those people as a reader who I can't get past if prose isn't good. And that doesn't mean it's always flowery or too flowery or anything like that. Like, but for me, there is objectively good prose. And then even if the story is good, I can't get into it if the prose is throwing me out of it, if that makes sense. So that's the part of it for me that I really love as a reader. Doesn't mean my writing's always there, but as a reader, that really matters to me. So I've had people like, oh yeah, it wasn't very well written, but I really love the story about this or that book. And I can never understand that. I'm like, how did you find the story if the prose wasn't engaging? And I never understood that, but they're like, I don't know. Like, all right, it was a trick question. Somehow they figured it out. I'm going to be 6 again, Jen.
I love
Jenna
it.
Von Oy.
Jenna Von Oy. So Max, what do you read? Do you have time to read? Because you said the executive director, co-executive director of the HWA. You're obviously a prolific writer. Like, do you have time to read?
Generally, no. I mean,
that's fair.
Unless it's for a project or for something that I'm that I promised to. But I mean, when I lately for pleasure, what I've been reading is more like nonfiction. I was actually reading a lot about the history of the Holocaust. That was actually for research because that was for my novel, which is.
I was going to say, wait a second. You're reading history of the Holocaust for pleasure. That something about that doesn't like that's for education, but pleasure.
Lately because I've been reading so much fiction for just not for work, but just because I've just had to read so much fiction. I mean, I've always loved nonfiction. So just it's I love history. I've always loved history. You know, I don't know. I can read history books, depressing history books, and it doesn't it doesn't bother me. You know, I'm halfway through a 600-page history of the Romanov Empire right
Nice.
now. You know, I also read multiple books at the same time. So I'm reading that. I'm reading a book about the Jews of the Key West right now. You know, so yeah. So I read multiple like history.
Cool.
You know,
Love it.
Do you switch between, like, for me, I usually have to have a physical book, an audio book, and something digital because like my brain likes to keep them separate. But the more different they are, the easier it is to keep them separate regardless. But like I was listening to a book and then my friend's book just dropped yesterday. So I'm listening to David R. Slayton's book because it just came out and showed up on my Audible. So like, listen. But then I have something else that I'm reading physically. And then I was beta reading yesterday on my phone for my friend who changed the ending of her book and it is now amazing and she's ready to query.
I usually try to stick with physical books.
You're paper guy. Yeah. That's fair.
Paper. So Max, before we finish up, you said you had 3 books coming out next year. Could you tell us just like what those are, when they're coming out, so we can
the first one, it's a collaborative poetry book. It's not really a continuation, but it's sort of based off my my 2023 poetry collection, Another Mythology. It's called Another Nemesis. So it's with myself, I Zhang, Eugene Bacon, and Angela Eureka Smith. So that's coming out in February, I believe, from Meerkat Press. The next book is it's called Neurotica. It's a poetry collection.
Love it.
Yeah, that is a great title.
It fits a little too well, doesn't it?
I know. It's like,
yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, it is. It is very appropriate for me for a lot of reasons. So that's coming out in April for National Poetry Month from Shortwave. So I'm very excited about that.
Love Shortwave. Sorry. I'm always I love Shortwave.
Shortwave.
There'll be a lot of some really exciting things coming out for that very, very soon, as well as a cover reveal. That cover hasn't been released yet. And then
I love cover reveals.
And then in September, there'll be another poetry book from Bad Hand Books. It's called I Was a Teenage Anti-Fascist. So
Another
it's
great title.
Yeah. It's it's anti-fascist poetry. So it's going to come out.
I feel like the titles
sooner
of
than
those,
September.
Yeah, the titles of those last 2 felt like they could have been my autobiographies, but we
I wasn't going to say anything. Jennifer,
mash them all together, and then it's like, uh-oh.
Pre-orders are out for I Was a Teenage Anti-Fascist, so you can pre-order them now.
And who's that one coming out from again? Is that one
from Bad Hand Books?
Bad Hands.
That one's Bad Hand. Okay, because you said there was Meerkat and then Shortwave and then Bad Hand. Okay,
yeah. So these are great places. Congratulations.
Well, your website is scrolling along the bottom there because I was saying to Max before the show, I was trying to find your website and you're listed on so many things. So I'm like, but which one's actually where we can find like the hub for all of your information? Because if you just Google him, there's tons of information and different publishers. Since you're working with so many different places, they're all like, yes, but I didn't want to put one of those. I wanted to put you. So it's the one that's coming down at the bottom there, scrolling along is the site. And then what your Twitter handle is CyberGod at CyberGod. Is that right?
CyberGod Writes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So CyberGod Writes, and then it's the wellsoftheweird.com for people who are like, I'm just listening. So that's Max's website.
Awesome. Max, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
It was fantastic. I'm glad we finally made this work. Thank you for putting up with our hats.
Yeah, we are a little ridiculous.
And
yes, you are ridiculous, but
and you are the second poetry author we have had.
We don't
on
do
the
a
show.
lot of poetry.
We don't do.
We
a lot
don't
of poetry.
understand a lot.
We're
of poetry.
we're like
we're trying.
We're not smart enough to do too many poetry things. But we're learning. We're learning. We're getting there.
Well, I'm happy you guys had me. So this is great.
And you will have to come back. If just so we can say the words neurotica.
I thought we were doing the
just
Antifa one, and I was going to wear my Moodang. I have my Moodang Heppo shirt that says "Become Ungovernable."
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yes. So great.
And I just bite people's knees.
Thank you, everyone, for watching live or listening to the replay. We are off for a few weeks in November.
Because you're going to go fancy places.
I'm off to Europe. So
I am not.
Your life is fancy. All of our lives are fancy in their own way.
But
we will be back in November. At some point in November, nailing down the date for the dramatic life of Jonah Penrose.
Yes, Robin Green will be coming on with the debut novel, The Dramatic Life of Jonah Penrose. So if you don't already have that, prep for the next show by
pre-ordering it.
That. It's not out yet.
So we will see you all in 2 to 3 weeks.
Bye, everybody. Bye.